Hi, and welcome along to another AFTV Transfer Daily, the show where we take a look at the players that have been linked with a summer transfer move to the Arsenal Football Club. And we're going to get straight into it. Going to be starting off today with a player that was heavily linked with a move to Arsenal in the January transfer window. In fact, a lot of people thought that this deal was going to happen. Arsenal were definitely, this wasn't just a rumour. Arsenal were definitely interested in this player and were trying to get him in, and his club, Real Madrid, in the end said, no, we need him, we're not going to let him leave, and that's his Alvaro Morata. Now, the manager of Real Madrid, Carlo Ancelotti, has actually come out and said that Morata is definitely leaving Real Madrid in the summer. He's got 1 year left on his current contract. And it's obvious now that Real Madrid have decided to cash in on him. It's obvious that he's not going to figure in their plans. They're probably going after another Galactico for next season, possibly Suarez, Liverpool fans. He surplus the requirements, and Arsenal, of course, were heavily in for him in January. Will they return now and try and get him? It's been reported that Spurs are also interested. And it's also reported that Morata has been talking as well to Juventus, and that Juventus really want to bring in Morata. Now, this guy's been spoken about by so many people. He's definitely a hot prospect. Is this the player that Arsenal need? Would you rather see Morata than, say, a Balotelli or a Loic Remy, say, for instance? Listen, he is available, so this is a player that maybe Arsenal may pursue. But as I said, it seems that his preferred move would be to go to Juventus, but we're going to have to watch this space on that one because Morata could be heading to the Emirates Stadium. Another player here, interesting player, yet another player that we were talking about in the January transfer window, and that is Bernard. Now, he's a Brazilian international. You're going to see him in the World Cup, winger. Very small, slight guy, but really quick, really good player. Arsenal were reportedly very interested in signing him as well, as they seem to be with every player. But he ended up going to Shakhtar Donetsk, playing his football over there in the Ukraine. Now, it's said that Shakhtar are prepared to sell him, but they want about 30 million for him, which is quite a hefty price for him. But again, Spurs interested. I don't think Bernard would want to go to Spurs. I mean, for one, they've got no Champions League football. And Arsenal also reportedly interested in bringing in Bernard, who would be a very exciting addition. And we know that Arsenal need a player who can play out on that left flank. And Bernard would be a player that would fit that bill. And as I said, he's the type of player, actually, that if Arsenal were going to get him, they should probably have moved before the World Cup, because he's the sort of player that his stock is probably going to rise after this World Cup, because we're going to be seeing a lot of him playing for Brazil. So Bernard, another player that's been linked with Arsenal today. This next person that's been linked is very interesting. Now, he's an ex-Spurs player, right? And he goes by the name of Steven Corker, plays for Cardiff City, centre-back. Had a pretty good season last year, played very well for Cardiff, although they did end up getting relegated. Of course, now Cardiff, as with any team that gets relegated, you have to start thinking about shipping some of these players that are going to be on pretty big wages out of the club. And Steven Corker is one of those players, apparently, that they're looking to move on. Now, he's been linked with a move back to Spurs. Spurs would apparently love to have him back. They realised that they made a big mistake in selling him, as usual with Spurs. But Arsenal are also interested, apparently, in bringing him in. Now, if you think about it, we've been talking about all these transfer targets over the past couple of weeks, but one area that Arsenal are going to have to address is the centre-half position. I mean, we've got, obviously, Koscielny, Mertesacker and Vermaelen there at the moment, and who's to know what's going to happen with Vermaelen after the World Cup, because he obviously can't be happy at the fact that he's a club captain and he's hardly getting a game. But even if Vermaelen stays, that's only 3 centre-halves. We need another player in that position, and Steven Corker could fit that bill. Remember, he's a player that, you know, he's played for England a couple of times, very well thought of, you know, very imposing player. And And Arsenal apparently interested. I don't think that would be a bad signing if Arsenal moved in and brought him into as cover in those positions. We're going to need cover. We're going to need a big squad. Be interesting to know what you guys think if you'd have Stephen Corker in. But that's another player that's been linked, and another player who's played for one of our big rivals last season and is apparently interested in Arsenal, and that is Samuel Eto'o. Now, I don't know how much of this is Eto'o trying to angle because he'd like to come to Arsenal rather than Arsenal bringing in Eto'o, because I don't know, I can't see it myself. He's 33 years of age. You heard those comments last year by Jose Mourinho where he's trying to imply that he might even be even older than 33. Listen, he's probably their best striker at Chelsea last season. He still has a little bit left to offer, but I just don't think that's the type of signing that Arsenal need right now. But he is being linked in many quarters to a move to Arsenal, and that is Samuel Eto'o. This next person has been linked today, and I find this one quite interesting. Now, we all know that we need a holding midfielder. We need a holding midfielder. That is a vital position for Arsenal. Now, this guy, he is a holding midfielder. He's played in the Premier League before, plays his football at AC Milan, and that's Nigel De Jong. Now, as I was explaining about AC Milan the other day when we were talking about Mario Balotelli, they've got no Champions League football next year. And again, they're in a bit of financial problems, and they're having to offload some of these players off of their wage bill. Nigel De Jong, 29 years of age. Remember, he used to play for Manchester City. I haven't really seen much of him since he's been at AC Milan, but I thought that when he was at City, he was a very, very good holding midfielder, very disciplined in that he'd sit there and just break up plays. That sort of destroyer type central, defensive midfielder that we need. And I don't think he would cost very much money, considering he's now, what, he's going to be 29, he's 29 years of age. Could that be the player that Arsenal could go? He wouldn't cost a great deal of money, as I'm saying. And could that be a player that Arsenal could move for? Because he's available. Would Arsenal bring in Nigel De Jong? They're being linked with him. That'd be very interesting. Or are Arsenal looking at it and thinking we need a sort of younger player that's going to play in that position, a player that we're going to be able to have there for, many a year? But that's very interesting. Nigel De Jong coming into Arsenal, and he would be available. You would be able to get him away from AC Milan. And on that, I was just wanted to talk about this. This is pretty interesting. Now, last year, if you'd have been watching the transfer dailies, you would have heard me on a lot of occasions. I'm going to admit it, a lot of occasions I was beating on about bringing in Marian Fellaini. Now, wow, did I get that wrong? That's why sometimes we got to trust in the manager. I thought he'd be perfect in that holding midfielder position. Manchester United came in, 27 million they paid for him, and he's been an absolute disaster. Now, I was just thinking the other day, because I've read where he's available for as little as £12 million. Man United prepared to take a £15 million hit on Marian Fellaini after just 1 year. Could this be a player that could come in and play that holding midfielder role, or has we sort of seen that he's been exposed when he's gone to Man United, when he's had to step up in class, that he just hasn't got the technical ability? I don't know. Well, let me know what you think. Leave it in the comments below. Would Fellaini be a player that we could bring in, 12 million they reckon, that could play that holding midfielder role? Let me know what you think. Just to get into a couple of the comments here, Gokul says, it's 3 p.m. in Malaysia. Hi, Robbie. Keep up the good work. Big up all Malaysian Gooners. It's always good to have you guys on board. Football Surreal says, hey, Robbie, people's prices are always going to go up after the World Cup. Everyone that plays well gets their prices raised. It's part of the modern day transfer window after a World Cup. And that's exactly my point why I think, we should have got some of these signings done early. Hayden Walsh says, listen to me, he says, you talk so much shite. I think I'm going to stop watching because I'm talking a lot of untruths. Now listen, mate, I'm just telling you about players that have been linked with Arsenal. What we do is we go through the news outlets, we go through the websites, we find out about the players that have been linked. Linked, yeah? I'm not saying we're buying these players. Linked. And if you don't know what linked means, look it up in the dictionary. Linked. That doesn't mean that Arsenal are going to sign him, but what we're doing in these programs, we're exploring the fact that some of these players have been linked, and we also look at the likelihood of whether it can happen or not, and I give my honest opinion on that. But if you think that every single player you see linked is going to come to Arsenal, you're very naive, mate. That's not how this transfer whole window thing works. We're looking at it in a broad sense. Sorry, going on to the next one, Zach James says, do you think Bernard would be able to make a difference, Robbie? He says also Jamaica has to up their game, mate. Oh, Jamaica, terrible at the moment. Bernard is an interesting one, as I said. I remember Arsenal were very, very interested in signing him before he went to Shakhtar Donetsk. And he's a very, very good player. Whether he'd have the physical strength to play in the Premier League is another matter because, as I said, he's quite a small guy. But, however, I mean, you look at players like Navas, who plays for Manchester City. He's very small as well, very similar to Bernard, and he had quite a good season last year in the Premier League. So, you know, that's very interesting. Lil Wayne is my idol, says, if we sign Morata, he would only be backup, not a bad backup to someone like Mario Balotelli. And he also said before that, "G'day, Robbie," and I'm presuming by him saying "G'day, Robbie" that he's watching over there in Australia. Thanks for everybody who's been watching the Arsenal Fan TV Transfer Daily. Don't forget, we'll be back tomorrow exploring more of the transfer rumours. Keep it locked here on Arsenal Fan TV, and don't forget to follow our excellent series that we're just about to start. It's Arsenal Fan TV's Loomis. Now, he's doing a diary, his World Cup diary. He's flying out to Brazil today. He's going to be out there for the whole of the World Cup. He's going to be traveling around to various cities over there in Brazil. And what he'll be doing is every couple of days, he'll be uploading videos of his experiences over there in Brazil at the World Cup. So make sure you look out for that. And we've got a load of excellent videos coming out regarding players that are going to be at the World Cup that Arsenal might be able to sign, etc. Have a look out for those videos. And thank you for watching Arsenal Fan TV Transfer Daily. We'll be back tomorrow at the same time.